Hey there, welcome to Anonymous Buddha. My name is Nikas, and I am an alcoholic. So, this Anonymous Buddha channel is the sort of intersection between spiritual awakening and enlightenment. The ability to use this big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, as a literal blueprint for enlightenment, as well as getting sober. So, um, today we're talking about step 3. Right, so we've gotten through the first 60 pages of the book. We've read through the steps. We've read through that part which I mentioned in step 2, where it says A, we're alcoholic and could not manage our own life. B, that probably no human power could relieve our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought, right? So the very next line is being convinced. We're at step 3. So I don't get to be convinced by anything other than making sure those first 60 pages have been thoroughly read to me, and I'm like, because if I'm not thoroughly convinced, the idea of turning my will and my life over to something that I don't even know what the heck it is seems kind of ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't seem like something anybody would want to do. So, but if I'm convinced that I'm alcoholic and I can't manage my own life, meaning that the obsession, when I'm stone cold sober, I'll have an obsessive thought that's so strong it'll push out all other thoughts to the contrary, and I will do the thing I said I'm never going to do again, right? That happens. And then once I start, I can't stop. The phenomenon of craving kicks in, right? The allergy of the body, the second part of the disease. I get this unexplainable occurrence of wanting more. I don't want to just have a sip and put it down. I want to have a sip and keep going, right? I don't go out at night to go partying. I go out to go drinking. And before I go drinking, I take shots because everybody drinks before you drink, right? Okay, maybe not. So, I'm alcoholic, can't manage my own life. Probably no human power could relieve my alcoholism. Mommy, daddy, judge, loved ones, nobody, including me, can't. If I could, I woulda, but I couldn't, so I didn't. Beyond human aid, and that God could and would if he were sought. So we agnostics, right, is me exploring the idea that maybe there's something beyond my power, beyond my willpower, beyond my will that's going to do this thing. Maybe there's something out there that apparently. What I've learned in We Agnostic is there's something that all these religious people maybe have gotten right. Now, this isn't a religious program, it's a spiritual program. So, and a God of your understanding is literally a God of your own understanding, not mine, not his, not hers, but your own understanding. However, the only way you get to that understanding is by trying to have a relationship through prayer and meditation, having an ongoing dialogue throughout the day, starting in prayer, ending in prayer. Throughout the day, when stuff comes up, you actually have some dialogue, some words with whatever the heck it is, and you take time to get still, to get silent, to stop doing, to stop being the activity of you that seems to be making all these problems in the first place, right? Okay, so step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Our will is our thought life. It's everything that happens up here, right? Our will doesn't actually exist in real time. It happens in imagination. It's only in thinking do I have my will. Now, my thinking might lead me to take an action that was driven by self-will, but my will actually only occurs up in here in my imagination, right? God's will, right, is what's happening, right? God's will is what is happening, is the way things are. So I think I've used this before, somebody cuts me off, then flips me off. That's the truth. I can say that person shouldn't have done that, or that's not right, but that's not the truth. The truth is that person did that. So if I want to live in my make-believe world, if they shouldn't have, then who's going to suffer? If I can just go, oh, oh, maybe that person's in a hurry. I don't know. Oh, that was unexpected. And just keep along my merry way, then I don't have a problem because I'm just dealing with life on life's terms, right? That's just reality, the way reality unfolded. That's God's will, right? But when I go into my will, that motherfucker, this furrow, and it's all my will is always some version of no. And God's will is always some version of yes. Oh, okay. My will is always some contraction, some closing down, some tightening up. That's how I know it's my will, because there's my whole body goes through just some sort of contraction. And that's how I know that I've left here where everything's open and lovely and fine. I've left here and I've gone to the magical world, the mythical world of what's not happening, my will, and gotten lost, right? So, made a decision to turn our will and our lives. If my will is my thought life, then my life is everything else. That's my actions and all the results from my actions. So I'm going to turn my thoughts and my actions and everything else over to the care of something that I don't even know. But I've learned in We Agnostics that, maybe there is something, and I'm going to give this a shot because I've been convinced of A, B, and C. So being convinced, we're now at step 3. Well, since I'm convinced that I'm screwed the way I'm going, I'm going to try what you all are telling me. So I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to try turning my will and my life over. So I'm going to read probably some out of the book here because it's just such a good teaching thing. It starts on 60 and I'm going to go probably through 62, the self page. What I come to find out in step 3 is I'm the problem, right? The problem is nothing I can point at, because anything I can point at is God unfolding exactly as God would have this moment, doing exactly what God would do, right? Because if God doesn't say it should be done, it doesn't get done, right? There's no accidents, no mistakes. There's only God's will in this world, period. So if I'm in conflict with that, then I've got the problem, right? So what step 3 shows me is that I'm trying to run around this world trying to manage and manipulate and try to get people to do what I want. It talks about there, most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. His arrangement, if things would only stay put, things would be good, right? So if the world would only do as I think, right? So that's the first misconception, is that this is trying to play God on that. And that's why I really have to, in step 3, really get to see, wow. So I don't have problems. I have a life of situations, but then my mind assigns a value to the situation, which if my mind says that's a problem, then I got a problem. If my mind says, oh my goodness, look at that, then I just have oh my goodness, look at that situation, right? So life is actually perfect. I'm either in conflict with it or I'm in cooperation. But that's all happening up here, okay? Selfish, self-centered, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. So the word self, right? The self is this idea. What I've kind of come to realize about myself is my quote unquote self, my identity, is just a ball of thoughts, ideas, and beliefs that thinks things should be a certain way, whether or not that's how they actually are, right? And so everything is in relationship to this. Everything is in relationship to this. Everything is in relationship to this. So if I'm going through life with everything in relationship to what I think, what I know, what I want, what I'm afraid of, all those sorts of things, then I'm walking through life as a ball of fear, basically, as a ball of me. And in the spiritual awakening, I awaken out of the delusion of this and into the truth of actual reality of what's actually happening. And it's not me in relationship to this, it's just life in relationship to life. And I'm just an observer, right? Okay, so selfishness and self-centered is how we're walking through life thinking that everything should be the way we think it should. And when we're in that sort of a delusional space, we're self-delusional, right? We think what we think is true. We're self-seeking. I want what I want, so I'm going to try to manufacture the world around me to get what I want, right? Self-pity. Oh, don't you know, poor me. I have this big story about me and this whole drama about me, but it's just a psychological made-up story. Right? And because of all that, we step on the toes of our fellows. And they retaliate sometimes, seemingly without provocation. I like this next thing. But invariably, we find that at some point in the past, we've made decisions based on self, which later place in a position to be hurt. So if I rewind the tape, if I pull the thread far enough backwards, I realize that I actually was out there trying to manipulate or make something happen. And because I was trying to do that, I was actually interfering in the happiness of somebody else's life, right? Because I wanted what I want. I think what I think is right, and I'm disregarding them, right? So troubles we think are basically of our own making, right? So I already said, I don't have any troubles. My troubles are of my own making. I have a life of situations until my little thinker, right, thoughts, ideas, and beliefs, thinks things should be other than the way that they are. Then suddenly it assigns problem, right? So our troubles are basically of our own making. They arise out of our self, our thoughts, ideas, and beliefs. And the alcohol is an extreme example of self-will run riot. So just meaning that, as alcoholics, we just think what we think is true and we want what we want. And you're standing in my way, so I got to do whatever I got to do. Though he usually doesn't think so. That's a hilarious thing about alcoholics is we actually don't think that we're selfish. But in actuality, we really are. We're just barreling through life, trying to get what we want, trying to make the world bend to our will, not trying to bend ourselves to life. It says, above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness, right? So we have to be able to let that go. That's really what this whole step 3 is about. So, if I'm going to give up my will over to the care of the God of my own understanding, whatever that is, whatever I've sort of started down this means of investigation to find out something for me, right? If I'm going to give that will and my thought life and the actions based on my thought life over to something else, then I'm not going to be running my life from this. So we must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. There often seems no way of getting rid of self without his aid. So most people, right, don't want to actually not have things go their way. It's just how the world is wired, most of the world. It's like, I want what I want. I'm not sure if I want what you want, so I want what I want. And as long as you want what I want, we're cool. Step on the toes of our fellows. They retaliate. So the idea of giving up my will and going with sort of some universal will is a really, really sort of destructive concept, because that means that I may not get what I want. And self's egoic, self-centered identities, they don't want to give up. So it says, there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. So his, meaning God, capital H, And I'll just use the word grace. Grace is an undeserved gift, right? So to be able to actually let go of my will is grace. It's an undeserved gift, man. There's nothing in this world that I've done to deserve the ability to walk throughout life and just want what the universe is providing me. It's crazy. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even if we wanted to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. So I can't force myself to stop wanting. I can't sort of keep one eye on myself and one eye on life and try to run my life. I'm running my life. If I'm trying to run my life, I'm running my life. We could have moral and philosophical convictions galore. I could go to meditation retreats and do all this stuff, but it just doesn't work, right? So the whole thing here is this is all going to come down to prayer and meditation. I'm going to take time and I'm going to ask for this thing to do this grace thing for me. And I'm going to take time every day to get still and let it do it for me, right? Okay, we had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. So, similarly, I'm driving down the street, right? A woman cuts me off, flips me off. If I get upset over that thing, that's me playing God. That's me saying what people should and shouldn't do. And that just doesn't work. If I want to remain in a state of happiness, if I want to not suffer, then I have to be open to things being as they are, not the way I want them to be. The Buddha defines suffering as an unwillingness to accept everything exactly the way that it is. If I can't accept life on life's terms, then I suffer, right? I'm in displeasure. I'm in discomfort. And it's all emotional. It's all mental, right? But if I'm like, oh, wow, that's totally unexpected. Okay. I'm not suffering. I'm just noticing. I'm just like, wow, okay. So that whole little concept of getting from but to that is something that actually, just like we couldn't give up drinking on our own, we had to have God's will. We couldn't give up our thinking mind on our own. We had to have God's will. So the first part is to really see that to stay in that sort of self-will is playing God, and it just doesn't work. So next, we decided to here and after in this drama, we're going to let God was going to be our director. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. So I'm going to take my direction from life. What is life asking me right now? What is this situation asking of me? Not what do I want to get out of the situation, but what is the situation in life asking me right now? What is my proper, true, and universal response to the situation, right? Okay. When we sincerely took such a position, the position that I'm not trying to run the show, that God's the father and I'm the kid, right? I'm really not running the show. When we sincerely took that position, all sorts of remarkable things happened. We had a new employer, being all powerful. He provided what we needed. Right? Maybe not what we wanted, but what we needed. If we kept close to him and performed his work well, just do whatever life is asking of you at that moment. Right now it's asking me to make a video, and so I am. Established on such a footing that I'm not trying to run my own damn life, that I'm just letting life happen through me. Right? Stepping on that, we become less and less interested in ourselves and our own little plans and designs. Right? Because I'm not trying to run the show. I'm just trying to be, a valued member in the show. I want the show to be best, not to be the star of it. I want to assist the show in whatever way I can assist the show. Right? As we felt new power flow in, we enjoyed peace of mind. As we discovered we could face life successfully, we became conscious of his presence. Once you start to see that this is all being taken care of, and I don't got to stress over this stuff, right? It's so much easier to just be relaxed, to just be in a state of grace, right? We begin to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. That's a huge statement, to lose your fear of what might be coming, of what's actually happening. you know, to just be in, oh, okay, well, we'll find out. We'll find out. We are reborn. It says, we are now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understand Him. So, I'm going to read the third step here. In the third step, I really see that it's my selfish, self-seeking, and my self-centeredness. That's the root of my problem. I got to let go of all that and just get into this, right? In step 2, I was restored to sanity, or at least I was introduced to the idea of sanity, which is sanity is not wanting things to be different than the way that they actually are. That's sane, you know. Sanity is not thinking that I can get loaded today and make it to work tomorrow. That's sane. Sane is not having a thought that's untrue or not following a thought that's untrue. That's sanity. You can still have untrue thoughts, just don't follow them because they're silly. You know, so in step 3, I really see that, oh my goodness, I've been trying to run the whole show here. What would happen if I just let go of all that and just allowed life to sort of carry me through life, right? And so in that sort of a understanding, in that sort of a interpretation, let's say the third step prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I might better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. Of Thy power, Thy love, Thy way of life, may I do Thy will always. So that prayer is just all about, you know what? Just relieve me of me. Do me a favor, relieve me of the bondage of self, this thing that wants and needs and thrives and is pushing life and is trying to always be selfish and self-seeking and self-centered. You know, relieve me of that and just allow me to be an active participant in life, right? That's what the third step's really all about. And that's the beginnings, right? So that's the beginnings. Now 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the house cleaning steps is coming up here. We're gonna face and be rid of the stuff that blocks us from just staying there. Because the things that block us from just, oh, okay, so here is fear, resentment, and guilt, shame, and remorse. And that's the stuff that we're going to inventory in the 4th step. But basically, when we come into just a state of absolute cooperation with life, that's really turning everything over, right? It's one of the best definitions I've heard of spiritual awakening is coming into a state of absolute cooperation with the inevitable. Life as life is. So, step 1, oh my goodness, I'm an alcoholic. Step 2, I think there's something out there that actually can kind of do this. And I'm going to go explore. I'm going to go find. Step 3, wow, I'm actually the problem. My impetus, my drive is actually what's making the problems here. Okay, so we'll see you later. We'll do the 4th step video next, and hope you're all having a great day. Be well.